All right, today is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, the time set for the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I am Michael Faith, the chair of the commission. I hereby call this meeting to order. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll stand with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the next item of business. Item A is the oath of office. Andy?
Chair, I apologize. Your printed agendas have a bit of a typo. You'll note number 3 is above number 1, just as far as order of operations.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We apologize.
Number 3, call to the community. This is the time for citizens who would like to address the commission on any non-agenda items. Actions taken as a result of public comment will be limited to asking staff to review the matters, asking that the matter be put on the future agenda, or responding to criticism. Are there any items of, are there any speakers?
Chair, thank you. There are no speaker requests this evening.
All right, thank you. On to the item 4, business. A, oath of office. Over to you, whoever it may be.
Where you're at, you could just stand. And then repeat after me. Just because I don't have a Bible, I'm sorry. I state your name.
I do
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state of Arizona,
of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to them,
and defend them against all enemies,
defend them against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of
discharge the duties of
the office of
the office of
planning and zoning.
Commission
There you go. To the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. Thank you. And at some point, if you can, during the meeting, just sign your oaths and then that will pick you up at the end.
Doing anything else for new members, or we moving on to the next item?
Chair, we can move on to item 4, letter B. I'll let it ask is that our new members abstain from approval of minutes for meetings they were not part of.
Item B, approval of minutes. I'm assuming there's no presentation.
Chair, there is no presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or address any typos that we may have missed and did during those minutes.
Any questions on the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve the minutes for September 10th, October 29th, November 12th, December 10th, and the regular meeting minutes for December 10th, 2030, or I'm sorry, 24.
So those are work study minutes for this first 4 dates, and then the last date is the regular meeting. Brian,
Second, yeah.
second? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? None. Minutes are approved.
Chair, and 2 abstains if I were to be.
Oh,
useful.
sure. Yes, we have 2 abstains, but let's go ahead and
Thank you.
mark that of the record. Thank you. And then on item C, state of the zoning code, the meat.
Chair, thank you. I am the meat and the potatoes.
Yes.
I wanted to bring this up. This is item 4C, the state of the zoning code. In your packet, very light packet, one attachment, if we had a chance to review it. If not, I've got it as part of the presentation. This is a discussion on the formation, challenges, and current status of our zoning code. This is for my benefit, for our interns' benefit, and for our new members as far as where we've been, where we are, and where we're going as a department and as a commission. We're going way back, and I swear this is only a couple slides, so don't fret. About 1900, 125 years ago, so we're Harvard created a Department of Landscape Architecture. This was brand new. So this was Frederick Law Olmsted Jr. These are test questions. Please make sure you know this. This is, the guy that did Washington, D.C., Arcadia, the Everglades, Yosemite. His essentially planning spurred out of landscape architecture. That's probably why we get along with them best out of civil engineers, architects, and landscape architects, because earliest planners were, in fact, landscape architects. That's where this kind of started to come into place. But then 1 year later, the New York Tenement Housing Act really showed that there was a need to regulate land use and regulate the use of buildings. This is because we had a dozen people living in, single tenements, no running water, no windows, nothing. And that somewhat spurred the need for land use control as well as a building official. That's where this all started. 1922, Standard State Zoning Enabling Act. This is again on the test, is what the federal government gave the states the allowance to start creating zoning, but it wasn't until 1926 in the case Euclid versus Ambler Realty in Ohio that really solidified the idea that zoning was protected. Ambler Realty sued Euclid because they put zoning in place for them not to be able to fully utilize their property. That's where this all kind of came into play. They claimed loss of value. The Supreme Court, US Supreme Court, upheld the decision and the zoning district designation by Euclid, and it kind of blossomed from there, let's call it. You fast forward 40 years, there's a movement called the Newtown Movement. It started in Reston, Virginia. This essentially said cities are broken down into villages, and at the center of each village are your schools, your churches, your commercial center. Sound familiar? Because that's what we kind of emulated. We made 1.5 villages before it all kind of fell apart in Litchfield Park, but I'll talk about that. So to us here locally, 1916 to 1943, the Southwest Cotton Company, which was an offshoot of Goodyear Tire and Rubber, becomes Goodyear Farms. Goodyear Farms, after finishing growing cotton, had a lot of land, so much land. And in 1963, they hired a gentleman out of California named Victor Gruen, who created the land planning and control studies. This is essentially the start of zoning and the start of a general plan here in the city. As you know, we didn't become a city till '87. So this was the start of how to become a community instead of a farm. 1 year later, Patrick Cusick and Emmanuel Michael Cartsonis, he went as Mike. Some of you may know Mike. Mike was on and off around here till about 2014. Passed away in 2016, if I recall correctly. His house is on Llano, just north of Scout Park. They came in from Pennsylvania. They joined him and they started naming the roads. Most of the road names comes from Mike. Patrick was here about 10 years before he moved on to other projects. Mike was on and off the city planner for about 50 years. He worked a bit for City of Scottsdale, was a professor at ASU, and as mentioned, his house is just north of Scout Park. We're getting closer to the start line. 1987, we become a city, and Ordinance 8711 creates a zoning code. I don't know what those first 10 ordinances were and why they were more important, but I think the zoning code would be at the top of that list, but that's okay. And it all kind of falls apart from there. Not to talk ahead of my slides, but we adopted a zoning code and land use regulations that were pretty close to what was built. Just keep in mind how many of these subdivisions were built decades prior to becoming a city. Those were all county regulations. We didn't simply copy paste the county's zoning code. We created our own, but what we created didn't match what we built. But I'll get to that here in a bit. We tried to fix this once in 1995. Ordinance 9532 just said, put an overlay on all these houses. That way, even though they don't match, we say that they're in a planned development overlay. And I'll show you that in a couple slides as far as how long of an ordinance that is. Here's a look just at that land planning and control studies. I have 3 copies at my desk from 1963. Mike and Patrick are on either side. We don't know who the guy is in the middle, but it's a mystery still. Here's a look at what that looked like from a big picture standpoint as far as the Goodyear Farms, and then just zooming in, you are located right at that red arrow. This is the intersection of Wigwam and Old Litchfield. You can see Indian School has already dove down in these plans from 1963. The Paradise Freeway, that was not essentially the 303, but before the 303 was really an idea, was going to cut through. That never came to fruition. The airport, and I don't mean the runway that was over where village is located now. I mean, a full-blown airport, commercial center, auto districts, and ASU West was attended here as well. We never got this far by any means, but this was the plan in 1963. We did end up with Australian Mountain Community College as a thought to that as well. There was also a plan for a zoo. Didn't exactly work out that way, but we ended up with the Wildlife World Zoo just north of our attempted village planning. There were supposed to be 12 villages. And again, we made one, Tierra Verde, here, which you consider in the walls is Tierra Verde, and then the greens in the village are somewhat of a offshoot of that village being named village intentionally. So why do we have a zoning code? There's a lot of purposes. I just nabbed a few that meant the most in my eyes. Protect and provide for the public health, safety, general welfare of the city. Easy to say, hard to define. You know it when it's good, you know it when it's not so good. And that's what we're trying to do, is to make sure it still stays good. The implementation of the city's general plan. General plan is our guiding document, our vision document for the next 20 years. We update every 10 years. I'll bring that before you guys in at least 2 years from now. We have a few projects on La Loma that are taking up a lot of my time right now, and I apologize that we haven't been able to meet more regularly. To provide adequate light, air, privacy, secure safety from fire, flood, other damage, and to prevent overcrowding of land and undue congestion of population. Again, this all goes back to the Tenement Act of 1901. To encourage orderly and beneficial development of all parts of the city. We certainly grew very fast, and we've kind of paused ever since. Monument Point, starting to fill in every now and then. Every few years, we'll get another light industrial development. Litchfield Square is going somewhat rapidly, and La Loma up on the hill is going too fast, quite frankly. That's why I look the way I do. I don't have time for a haircut, quite frankly. Lastly, to provide the most beneficial relationship between the uses of land and buildings. Now, as far as again, back to the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes, the good stuff. It's development standards, it's uses, setbacks, heights, it's lot coverage. Every time someone calls and says they want to put a shed in their backyard, that's where those standards come from. Site standards, excuse me, landscaping, parking walls. Think of this more for non-residential, for commercial development. Signs, I would like to thank those of you last year that worked with me through the approval of the sign code update for federal compliance. General provisions as far as accessory structures, which is always a hot and heavy topic for design review board, lighting, storage, and then all our processes as far as how do you do a site plan, a use permit of variance, or a plan development overlay. Now, just jumping back for a second, we try to overcome our shortcomings, and I wish this was in larger text, but this is how much was affected by that overlay in 1995-32. What it essentially was a solution to the ongoing Board of Adjustment hearings for setback variances. If you go over to City Hall, you'll see a stack yay big from 1987, 1988. And the Board of Adjustment was just so tired of hearing variances for setbacks because, as mentioned, we adopted a zoning code, said one thing, but our platted subdivisions had another, and they were all encroaching into those setbacks, essentially all grandfathered, but we'll get there in this conversation. So as mentioned, let's just put a PD overlay on everything within Tierra Verde. Again, that's east of Litchfield Road. So we did, but there's a lot of things that we didn't accomplish with that PD overlay. And I'm just showing you a snippet of our zoning code as far as here within Tierra Verde Village. You'll note, over on Bahia, over in La Casa Linda, over here in Desert, you'd have those sort of PD overlays, as well as Laguna Royale, I believe, has a PD overlay. And then over here, Peninsula and Sierra Hermosa, the townhome developments that are over there, they have this sort of overlay. The other part of this was even our very first subdivision, depending on how you classify it, you could say that Litchfield Greens is the city's first subdivision because it was the first one built after we were Russ. Everything else prior was when it was still the county. Now, generally, that PD is supposed to create modified standards up front, not as a retroactive measure. So things like Cachet, Renaissance Village, and the Village, Hidden Terrace, all those sorts of developments, they all have unique standards. You'll note in the Village, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but They have 11,000 square foot lots, 9,000, 7,000. There's densities that were specifically created and done for that development. Here in Tierra Verde, we did it after the fact to kind of make up for the confusion that we created. So what happened next? In 2010, and it was in your packet as well, Larry Harmer, who was a city planner, he worked for Woody Scouten when Scouten Engineering was our consultant engineer and our consultant planner. He gave a presentation to city council, basically noting that this was an ongoing issue and we needed to do something about it. However, his solution found in our zoning code was called non-conforming side yard setbacks in single-family residential districts. This was our attempt in 2010 to basically address the ongoing Board of Adjustment situations, but it didn't address front yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, lot sizes. A lot of ones that were zoned R115, 15 being a 15,000 square foot lot size, are 8,000 square feet, 9,000 square feet. They're all grandfathered. And again, I'm talking through my slides, so I'm gonna pause there. What it basically said in a very long statement was, if plat, the instrument that creates lots for sale and people buying, had a different set of standards than our zoning code, you could revert back to those platted setbacks. But again, this was only for the side yard. Now, before I go further, it's a lot of information about our past. This is a discussion item. I didn't call it a work study session because I did want to get a lot of those minutes approved during a regular session item, but I'd be happy to have a conversation now if you want to pause in this presentation.
Any questions from any of the commissioners? Any clarity on so far?
Yeah, I guess
Then-
I'm confused. What is, I guess I'm not clear on what the underlying issue is.
So Councilmember O'Connor, what happens is I get residents. I'd like to build something in my backyard. I'd like to invest in my property, and they're grandfathered, meaning their property is not allowed to do what they want. So there's been several occasions where what they wanted to do was beyond the bounds of what is allowed. If their house, for example, had a 30-foot requirement in the front yard and it's located 20 feet from the front yard, they're already encroaching. So we wouldn't even permit any sort of expansion. I had someone that wanted to do a porte cochere on the front of their house. No, you cannot do that. It's the same thing with rear yard setbacks or side yard setbacks. They want to put an addition, redo the master bedroom. Because they're already encroaching, we cannot grant further encroachment into a non-conforming lot. There is a couple of different attempts at this. Board of Adjustment heard a number of variances to basically grant approvals to allow re-encroachment, basically, because the house already did. There was this attempt in 2010 to say at least do the side yards. The other big problem that comes up is every now and then I've got a call from the appraiser. Appraiser will say, I'm reviewing your zoning code, I've reviewed the zoning map. It looks like this house is non-conforming or grandfathered. I say, yes. I get a call 5 seconds later from the realtor. They're gonna lose their funding. The bank won't loan them because it's a non-conforming lot. They're gonna lose the house. So we had to work through that to basically say, yes, it's non-conforming. Yes, up to 50% of the house in a case of calamity can be rebuilt, but after 50% or a total loss, you cannot rebuild the house as it stands today. And that gives a lot of people a lot of trepidation on buying in Litchfield Park. That also detracts and deters people from investing in their homes because they just can't. They can't expand any further than where they are at today.
So, you know, being on design review board for like 7 years,
Yes.
we were working off some baseline. So what baseline, I guess, was that we were working on?
Sure, Commissioner O'Connor, it depended on your planner. And it depended on if it was one of our staff planners or if it was a consultant planner. Some planners of their own accord said, we understand that it's an encroachment. If it's 5 feet too close, so long as you don't go any closer than that, we'll let you add on to the front or the rear of that 5-foot setback, even though it's 10. There were some planners that said you need to step back. And so if your house was 5 feet away, any sort of addition had to meet 10 feet away, and we get some sort of zigzag lines. So there are ways to do it. None of it's as good as we could do. It's funny because in 2010, in Larry Harmer's presentation, I include the minutes, he noted that staff was just too busy to address it holistically at the time. And it's kind of been that way ever since for 15 years. I know my predecessor, Jason Sanks, and it may have overlapped with Daniel Loftus a bit too, was trying to do full modernization of the code. And they got pretty far, but then that sort of died out as well.
And then Mike and I were like on the,
Yes.
in a committee for that, so yeah.
Yeah, so again, here we are, 2025. I've brought on interns to try and get across this finish line, or at least across the starting line to help the residents. Because a lot of residents are rightfully mad that they either are in risk of losing their funding to buy or sell property, as well as not being able to invest in their homes the way their house was built because of these situations.
And sorry, I don't want to take up everyone's
No,
time here, but
I have
like,
questions too.
okay, what like, is it like, what percentage of these homes are you coming
Well, we'll
across?
get that.
Okay,
That's coming up, because that's the jaw dropper, but I don't want to reveal that just yet. It's coming.
got it. Susan?
Thank you. Mine is just a broad question and you may have said it. If I look at this from a layman's term,
Yes.
are you saying that many of these properties had a grandfather clause and now they do not?
Commissioner Fix, if I've misstated, I'll restate. I won't say the number yet, because I don't want to spoil the surprise for Commissioner O'Connor and the rest of the commission. It's flummoxing how much of the city is in a grandfathered state. Almost, well, I don't want to say it. A large majority of the Tierra Verde Village is incorrect. I think is the layman's way to say it, is in a situation where they are grandfathered. It's a very small amount that can and may enjoy their property the way it was built. Everyone else is in a grandfather state, or a legal non-conforming state is the fancier way to say that, to basically say you are limited on your enjoyment of your property. Your neighbor across the street may not have that situation.
So what's the fix?
Oh, it's coming. Oh, that's.
Okay.
She's there. Any questions before we move on? We're good. Thank you. So, perfect segue. I am tasked with opening a school, performing arts center, library, museum, and park by August of next year. And it's taken up a lot of time. And I apologize, we haven't been able to meet more regularly. What we were able to do is bring on 2 interns from Arizona State University. Both have now graduated with their undergrad in urban planning. Roberto Marino was here through the spring semester. He was focusing on sidewalks and pathways. What is a pathway and what is a sidewalk is a conversation for a different time. Jacinda has been focusing on setbacks within Tierra Verde to a lot of the questions here as far as like, what can we do, quite frankly? And are you ready to take over?
All right.
In the middle button, yes.
So my research has been just analyzing all of the lots within Tierra Verde and finding the number of compliance. So most of the compliant lots are within the R1 zoning district. Which one's
The highlight is the top, yes.
okay. So that's
Hold it down.
So that's kind of 4. So near Camelback, all of these lots meet the requirements. And most of the non-conforming lots are located south of Wigwam Boulevard. It's a lot of lots. So the biggest issue for non-compliance is the subdivisions being placed in incorrect zoning districts. So as an example, This is the platted requirements. So for the front, it's 20 feet, the rear is 25, and then the interior side is 7, and the street side is 13. Which is the platted requirements. But the subdivision is also placed in the R115 zoning district, which has very different standards. So the front is 30, while the street side is 30, and the interior side is 15, and the rear is 30 as well. So that's pretty big difference between the two. The current status, only 174 homes out of the 1,120 homes fit their development standards. So only 15.5% comply with their setbacks and lot sizes. And like Randy said, there have been ongoing requests from residents looking to expand their homes, but due to their grandfathering status, they're not able to. Same issue with potential home buyers. They have nearly lost financing on purchasing homes due to their non-conforming status. For future plans, a comprehensive analysis has been done for all the setbacks and lot sizes for all lots in Tierra Verde. Multiple options have been analyzed internally, and possible solutions are pending legal review. And Proposition 207 requires cities to compensate property owners with a change in valuation.
Let's pause there.
Yes, okay. And
Thank you. So want to give her the practice of public speaking because her next job is going to have these sorts of conversations. For those that don't remember Prop 207, I don't mean the Safe and Secure Act that created recreational marijuana. I mean Prop 207 in 2008. If you rezone properties, you must pay that property owner compensation for the change in valuation. Think of not necessarily us, but think of other cities that have agricultural land that becomes residential. When it changes from ag to residential, you can be sure those property taxes are different. And this law basically said you must write them a check, that even though they came in and they requested the rezoning, you now have to compensate. Every city immediately came out with a Prop 207 waiver that basically said any business you want to do with us, that's fine, but you're gonna sign this waiver that says you're not gonna compensate. Where this comes in is I can't rezone an R115 lot to R18 because that is a change in valuation. I'm not an appraiser, but I'd be willing to put out there to say that people would probably be upset. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's not true to what the reality is. So if you were a zoning nerd and you looked up your zone and you saw R115, you'd think, I have a 15,000 square foot lot. I am 15 feet away from my neighbor, and they're 15 feet away. So I have 30 feet between houses. I have a 30-foot front yard, I have a 30-foot rear yard. I have a very big property that I have full enjoyment of. You come to us here in Litchfield Park, you buy an R115 lot, and it's 9,000 square feet. And it's 14 feet between your window and their window. And the front's only 20, and the rear's only 25. We goofed, I think is the layman's way to say it. We goofed real bad in 1987 by finding a zoning code that was close enough and throwing it on all the lots in here in Tierra Verde. And through Board of Adjustment, through text amendments, and through various interpretations of this, we're at where we are today. Now, it's been my intent since starting here to address this. I have not been able to. We brought on the interns and we've accelerated this timeline because I wasn't planning to have this conversation with you guys for years, quite frankly. Now, as mentioned, as far as possible solutions pending legal review, we've given this information to Joe to say, here's a couple of ideas. I'd be happy to share those ideas. As far as the public record, I can't say with any certainty that these would pass muster per se. So pausing there to answer your initial questions as far as how bad is that it's 85% of the lots are non-conforming.
What percentage of those 85 is solved by a PD overlay that you were talking about?
So Chair Faith, You could say that half of the lots, because it's mostly the ones in the south end, I'm gonna back up for those with any sort of motion sickness, Dramamine to them. So most of the PD overlay was done here at the south end. Now, this was also kind of accomplished because Laguna Royale, La Casa Linda, Peninsula, Sierra Hermosa, these aren't your typical single-family homes. A lot of these are townhomes. La Casa Linda has a condo version as well. So it solved some things. The zoning code regulations for residential cluster allow those sorts of different products. But we still think we can do better than the PD overlay. And
That PD overlay is the overlay that says go back and look at the plat? Or is this a different one?
Chair Faith, it is not that one. So
Okay.
the other thing with the PD overlay, and not to nerd out too much and overwhelm our new folks, but if you do a PD overlay, you have to have a development plan. Basically, the new zoning code that you've written with all the alternative standards says, here's my zoning code. The village has one of those. Everything in here didn't get a new PD development plan written out that basically says all of these lots mentioned. And I mean, it's so many lots. Planned developments, high density residential cluster, PD, RC for lots 28 through 78 and subdivision 19. I don't know who wrote this in 1995. I don't think it was any of our relatives in 1995 that wrote this. Okay, just making sure. But trying to figure this out would make sense if there was the unique standards. The 2010 change from Larry Harmer in section 3204G just addressed side yards. So there, to the point of possible solutions, one of the possible solutions is just to blanketly state all lots platted before incorporation may use their platted subdivision standards instead.
Just do another PD over all of it?
No.
That was for you.
The only problem with that is only a very small number of them call out the setbacks. A lot of them didn't. So then it goes back to Jacinda's manual measurements and street view reviews, and out on the streets review to say, how much is that setback? There isn't a good magic wand solution to this. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Hopefully, I'm not the only one that's, my mind's still spinning.
Yes,
Can you just give an actual example,
I,
like a specific example, like what's?
yes. I'm gonna pull something up on my computer. When I want to share, I'll let you know, since that computer is the sharing computer.
May I
Thank you.
ask, Lucinda, may I ask you a question? Your research that you did, again, I'm new, I can claim the newbie, I have the newbie hat on. The diagram that you showed with the setbacks and the red bracketed area, was the diagrammed area smaller than the bracketed area?
Commissioner Fix, yeah, it was,
Okay,
by like at least 10. For like the front, it was 20 on the platted requirements. And then on the red, which is the zoning district, it was 30 for the front. So there's, especially with the side too, the sides on the platted requirements are 7. And then on the zoning district, it's 15. So it's a pretty big difference.
they're all built on with the wrong side, all of them.
Yeah, because that's actually for subdivision 16. And through my research, all of the lots on subdivision 16 did not reach their requirements.
I will have an example, Commissioner O'Connor, just a
Are
moment.
there case studies on this?
It's really this kind of stuff, because it's black and white, we just have two things that don't match.
There were a whole bunch of, a lot of stuff that was east of the Wigwam, because there were houses in there There was a new zoning, but nobody on the block had it, everybody had it. A lot of variances were done because of, I remember that, those neighborhoods over there. But since then, I haven't heard any more about it. Flares up and then it all goes. Then you get a new planter, it starts again.
Yeah.
Then we wear the new planter out, so they do. You know. There you go.
We are close to revealing in just a second. Other questions while I get this technology figured out?
To fix this, you just go through every neighborhood, find the house with the least amount of setbacks, change them all to that so that you're not taking anything from them.
So I'm not a lawyer, Chair Faith.
Right.
However, that is one of the options for record that is being determined with our legal representation as far as there's always going to be someone 40, 50 years ago that put the house in the wrong spot, put the stakes down, wind blew it over, they moved the stake and then the foundation was poured in the wrong spot. Still happens today, quite frankly. So yes, to your point, as far as not getting into a situation with Prop 207, if we looked at how everyone was developed, then we are not granting nor removing any of their sort of property rights for what has been built and whether their enjoyment of their land. Jacinda has done that analysis as well. It's a big change though, and how we present that information to the public, tell them that you bought R115, now we're gonna call it suburban residential, and these are your setbacks going from before to after. It has to be celebrated in a way that basically said, you couldn't use your land, now you can. Please feel free to enjoy your property the way it was intended and the way it was created 50 years ago. But again, that's a rewrite, quite frankly, of our code into something new. Now, it's still my goal, and certainly we've talked about a number of things we had to address in text amendments. Actually, I don't want to speak through it. We'll get there. Any luck on switching over the?
See it on both of my screens, but for some reason it's not.
Somebody.
So it's, that was 80 or 90 years ago.
Definitely seen a few like that. I don't think we have any like that much of a part of it.
Just thinking about my street, everything was built to what the original developer, and there is no extra. More than anybody, whatever lot lines we have, everybody has the same. There's only 6 houses.
Right.
Today off, which house?
Like,
We remodeled, did a lot of remodeling.
versus 30 feet. So they can add on to it, and I'm kind of confused about this.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to understand too, and then like, so technically someone could bulldoze a house and then build a new one and it'd be up 20 feet if they want. Or only have a 20-foot setback. So that's
Right, I think the grandfathered rights, you get to keep them until you do something to the house, and then you have to come up to the new code. So if you've got one person listening, so if it's, if you're supposed to be 30, but you're actually 20, and then you want to build a casita or build on your house or something like that, then you have to come up to the new code. That's the problem, is you're already in reach. Now, if
But isn't it kind of the other way around? Like, you were able to only have a 20-foot setback, but we required a 30-foot setback.
so you can continue doing that as long as you were, so it's a legal non-conforming use. So as long as you were legally using the property before the code required the 20 foot. So before they made it shorter, or I'm sorry, in this one, 30 feet, before they made it shorter. So when you try to fix something in your house or add on to your house, then you have to come up to the current code. And the question is, what is the current code? What does it say? So everybody just as they are right now is fine, as long as you never change the size of your house.
Yes,
It's just if you want to change something on your house, then you have to come up to the current code.
yes.
And you weren't in compliance at the time. So you can't add 500 feet here because the front of your house is completely off. You'd have to tear down the front of your house, come into compliance.
Yes.
To build the back of your house.
So most of the properties are 20 feet back that are currently there? Is that what you're saying, or?
Chair, Commissioners, that is an example. I cannot pull up a map for you. I apologize. So where this came in mostly was a lot of the city has R115 zoning. This is as good as we're gonna get for this moment, unfortunately. So Ancora, Ventura, the houses along Desert that come down here, these are all zoned R115 with lots that are 8,000, 9,000 square feet. So they're way off already. Their side yard setbacks, and maybe it's worth a drive after you guys leave here today, just take a left and go down here. You'll notice the side yards are 100% not 15 feet. Those houses are not 30 feet apart from each other. They're 10 feet, 12 feet apart. That's an example, I guess, to get back to here. Unfortunately, I can't pull up a better way to show this to you. Jacinda has essentially gone through all 1,120 lots and measured each individual one. That's why I have brought on interns, because it's going to take me forever to find out what was and what is. And even though we sometimes have platted standards as part of that, like in this case here on the right, it may still not be that. So we'd be cautious in saying just revert back to platted, because that might not be enough of a step to take. It essentially is a rewrite to say, here's what it actually is. Again, not to give them any more or any less than what is built, the way it was built. I heard good conversation. Keep going.
And so,
Yes.
like, in that area, like, did you find consistency in all of those?
Commissioner Connor, consistency in the inconsistency?
Yes.
Yes, that's a fair way to say that. We can't say that carte blanche by any means. There are some situations that were radically different. For example, I'll show you. There was one plat that did lots here on the west side of Tierra Verde that also did the zero side setback here on the east side of Tierra Verde. They're white houses with S-tile roof. I can't think of the block names over here, but in between the two Tierra Verde entrances off of Dysart, those lots were platted at the same time. Radically different lots were platted. So it was a hodgepodge, but I think it's the technical way to say it. The other ones we didn't really have a problem with are Bird Lane, Old Litchfield Road. Those were all big enough already that, there wasn't any sort of encroachments in those.
Were we on question? Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to make something clear. On these houses that aren't in compliance,
Yes,
someone purchases those and they come in, they can do a remodel as long as they stick to the original floor plan, correct? They just can't add any square footage to their structure.
Commissioner Conklin, that's a fair way to say that. The only way they would be able to add on to the building footprint is if they met our standards. So there are some people that add 50 feet, 100 feet. We had someone last week that added a master bathroom through design review board, and it was within the existing footprints. So we are able to do that, at least that step, but for a majority of the situations, they're in a situation where they cannot use their land.
May I ask?
Go ahead.
Just, I just want to take a note. So R1 is, those are 30
I'll,
notes real quick. The R1 homes.
hang on, I'll get there. So our code is not very clear, and if you haven't read it, it's a good read right before bed. Here, you'll note zoning designation and section number. So just look at the top. The section number just refers to what section in the zoning code you can find it in. We have a density gradients. Residential estate, think Bird Lane. R1, think Campina. R115 is a majority of the city. And again, the second number represents the lot size, 15,000, 8,000, 6,000. Then you get into cluster. A cluster is a catch-all term to say townhomes, duplexes, that sort of thing. Then we get into MFL, MFM, and MFH, multifamily low, Renaissance Village, multifamily medium, never been used. Multifamily high is actually for Hacienda del Rey, the retirement community that's behind Albertsons. And patio home, also not in use. These would all have to be modified or a new nomenclature, a brand new code to basically avoid a lawsuit is the simplest way to say that. I can't strike through this and say you had it and now you don't. We'd have to modify.
And so,
Sorry, ask
most,
questions all night.
most of these houses were built prior to that code being adopted.
Almost, I don't know that there's any, I'd have to think about that. As far as if there's any lots within Tierra Verde that were constructed after 1987. Oh, there are some.
Yeah, there are some. You're definitely right.
Where Indian School used to go straight and Indian School bends. There's a very small little bit there on Fairway, I believe.
Right.
That you can see that like they're from the 80s. They have the white stucco, the as tile, they look like Arrowhead Ranch or Marshall Ranch.
Right.
Those are okay. Anything else in Tierra Verde, I'd be as bold to say probably not okay.
And is it oversimplifying by saying they just should have made those homes should have been in the R18?
It's not oversimplifying by any means. We did wrong. We messed up. We assigned zoning districts that does not comply with what was built. And we have been in this situation, as Vice Chair was talking about it, ever since 1987. And there's legitimately, stop by and I'll show you the stack of Board of Adjustment hearings that we're trying to address this.
You
So-
sure there's not like it hidden somewhere in our stack of everything? I'm serious, because I mean, it's like, I know I'm dating myself when I was a kid at the time, but I mean, the developer over there, it seemed like he was working with the city, I thought. But I mean, I would think that there should have been some sort of consistency. I mean, granted, it was like so long ago. I mean, it's like we were a village, then we were a town, and then we were a city. I mean, and so there were a lot of transitions and stuff, but.
And to your point, Commissioner Alvey, there's several versions of the Suncor story. The people who
Okay.
bought Goodyear Farms
Okay.
and were set to develop the city. The president of Suncor, the former president and I, dear friends, I know his story.
Okay.
I know our internal story.
Okay.
I know the real story is somewhere in the middle of those
Yeah.
two versions. A lot of this also has to do with, not to tangent too far, but the reason we ended up at 1.5 villages is the next village that was set to come is Palm Valley. Palm Valley, directly across our street, the pre-annexation documents, all the plats, the zoning is sitting in the vault, and it was set to become Village 2. And the town council, city council, 1987, basically saw the number of houses, the amount of streets to maintain, because we are not a property tax city, said that was too much of a burden, and declined to pursue that. I think that's the fairest way to say the two
Yeah.
versions of the story.
Okay.
So,
It just seems odd that it's not covered because it's like such a massive
yeah,
area, so many houses, that's all.
agreed. And, we had a great benefit from Mike working here for 50 years, But after Mike, it's a real ebb and flow of employee or consultant. You know, you've met them, some consultants ended up being out of the country and still the consultant in this role. We won't get into that, but it's been tricky, I guess you could say, to find success.
Susan, do you have more questions?
No.
Okay, Brian,
I do, but I'm gonna let
Sure.
them go.
Yeah,
Okay.
let somebody else ask.
anybody else? All right, you had more? We're going.
I have one last slide,
Go ahead.
as far as what else is going on. Housing diversity. The missing middle, if you haven't heard this catch-all term, missing middle, it boils down to Litchfield Park should have apartments. I think it's the most stark way to say it. People assume that all of Litchfield Park is what is on Bird Lane. And that's really not the case. Through all of this research, we've come up with the following. You can see, I'll tell you which one it is. Dark blue, top right. So say 12 o'clock to 1:30. Those are condos. There are 438 condo units in the city. If you compare that to the large lots, that 397, look at 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and the even larger Bird Lane lots. There are more condos than large lots here in the city. And I think that message is lost. A lot of people seem to think that we don't have diversity. We have more condos than estate lots, which is, I think it should be celebrated. We have the townhomes. We have, the diversity in the village as far as, the smaller lots, Sunset Terrace, smaller lots, La Casa Linda, bless you, the condos and townhomes. There's a lot more going on here than what you'd think. And that somewhat ties back to, if we were to modernize the code, how do we recognize that there maybe isn't as much of a range as we think there is? We have 18 zoning districts, but then we've also added commercial flex, agritourism, city center. And if you include zoning districts that have a PD overlay, I think we're over 30. And over 30 districts in 3.3 square miles just doesn't make sense. And we'll get there, I guess you could say. The other part of this, text amendments, landscape and parking are on hold. We were hot and heavy to get those going with you guys. We appreciate all your feedback in those work study sessions at the end of last year. It took a while to get the allowable uses and the sign code through city council. Those just got finished in March, a couple months ago. Those are now live and active. So we are federally compliant once more on our signs. And we are continuing to monitor state law changes. The legislative session is still going. There's a lot of conversations about ADUs. There's a lot of conversations about design standards. There's a lot of conversations about why even have local zoning control. So we monitor, we advance through our lobbying efforts where appropriate. Certainly the Arizona League of Cities and Towns understands that we all enjoy the lifestyles we do because there is an element of control. And without that control, slaughterhouses in your neighbors' backyards, RVs parked everywhere, weeds growing very tall. Rena wouldn't have a job anymore. So we understand that though people come to Litchfield Park to escape the HOA, zoning still exists, and zoning, we'll tie this all up and above. Zoning still promotes health, safety, and general welfare of the city and its residents. That is the end of my presentation. I wanted to at least put this bug in your ear to say there's a lot going on. There hasn't been a lot of time to have these conversations with you, but we wanted to at least start the conversation once again for our new commissioners. We thank you for your interest in serving. And at this point, I'd be happy to answer any last questions on that.
All right, any last questions from the commissioners? All questioned out?
Well, where is this going, or what's next steps, or?
Commissioner O'Connor, it's with legal right now to see what is the appropriate next step. If we were to pursue, it's hard to modernize a zoning code that wasn't dictated by the general plan. I can't change zoning districts that would create a nonconformity with the general plan. The order of operations may be waiting for the general plan to update, and then within the general plan's update, a start of this conversation, and then we can come in right behind it and celebrate a modernization of the code. The other thing is, it's going to be a lot of education. I mean, a tremendous years worth of education to make sure that all the residents are aware of the situation, why it affects them, and hopefully they see the value in addressing the concern. Because we do not want to put ourselves out there to a point of a 207 claim against the city to say, you're taking something away from me. So it could be soon, it could be a couple of years away. But this is something that is an ongoing concern. We want to certainly present this information before our intern gets hired somewhere else and say hello and meet the new commissioners.
And then, so how are you conducting DRB? Is there any, like, are you still able to go status quo on that, or like?
The Commissioner Connor, yes, nothing has changed with a design review board so long as they follow code. So there have been some situations where people are turned away, but we still had 6 cases last week. We have meetings on a monthly basis because people are still finding solutions, maybe not the solution they wanted, but they still want to invest in their properties, which we certainly appreciate and encourage.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Randy, are you aware of other cities or towns that have experienced this level of consistency?
Commissioner Fix, not to this level, no. I've had this happen twice. In Peoria, it happened in one subdivision of 30 houses where the platted standards were different than the zoning, similar to this, 30 houses total. And through their legal review, they came up with an administrative variance, which is oxymoronic to say because a variance is governed by state law and through a board of adjustment. An administrative variance took it to a lower level that the zoning administrator could grant and basically say on a case-by-case basis, you can revert back to your platted subdivision. The other time that this has happened is in Buckeye. Buckeye had a zoning code and adopted a new zoning code, but did not create an equivalency table to basically say you used to be called industrial, now you're called employment. So they have 2 zoning codes that they have and adopt. One is the obsolete zoning and one is the current zoning. So depending on where you're on the city, there's 2 codes. I don't recommend that solution either.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. Go on to executive session. I don't see a reason for an executive session. On to staff reports on current events. Does staff have any reports?
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. We appreciate your attendance. We look to have these as often as we possibly can. Your input is needed and valuable in order to direct staff on how to move forward with that. For the record, we'd like to thank Roberto Marino for his time here in the spring semester interning with us. These are unpaid interns. Roberto did this for course credit. Jacinda did this out of the goodness of her heart. Jacinda grew up here in Litchfield Park, lives in the village. Her cousin's grandfather, great grandfather, excuse me, was William Tainter. You know, Tainter Drive, just 2 blocks south, developed La Casa Linda. So this has been a passion project of hers to be here. We hope to have her as long as possible. We also hope for her to move on and get paid for this kind of work. Besides that, I've alluded to it. The La Loma Homestead is a lot of things going on right now. City Council next week, we will be presenting the designs for the library and the high school. And in that monthly updates, there is a Gantt chart and timeline as far as everything that is going on that site. I have no further business.
Is there any update on the city center and the development there?
Vice Chair, we have to be careful on this because it's information only, not a discussion. So I will rephrase my update to include more information for you. The city center has 3 active projects, lots 3 and 4 at the very north center. Let's call it box 2 or top middle square. has finished their grading. They are working with Liberty Utilities. They ran into a bit of a snafu. They did not give their information to Liberty Utilities in a timely manner. They are now going as quickly as possible. The city has made calls to Liberty Utilities to encourage efficiency in getting those done so they can get building. That's the only thing left. Plans are ready to be handed over to them to construct. Lot 1, Lot 2, which is top left, is Mike Rodolfo and his family, Mr. and Mrs. Rodolfo. They have received approval on their designs. They have now finished the purchase. They have entered into the development agreement. They hope to push dirt before the end of the year. And quite frankly, they're contractually obligated to push dirt before the end of the year based on the development agreement. The last one is lots 13, lot 14, which is directly around City Hall, bottom middle square. Jay Pointer and PPG have submitted a proposal for a 3-story ground floor retail restaurants, second and third floor of 20 condo units with attached garages, as well as how that fits with City Hall and our parking lot. That is under design review. We will have that in June and the first blush. We're taking these through DRB and City Council twice. First time just to get additional feedback so that when we bring the final designs, they're ready to be approved. The other lots, 5, 6, 7, which is north of Papa Paul's, still available. Right now it's used as temporary parking. 9, 10, 11, 12, which are the ones along Litchfield Road, are available as well. Paige Peterson, myself, and Councilmember Allen attended a Westmark event today where we touted what the square has available to potential developers. So we'll see if that garners any additional interest. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. On to the next item. Do any commissioners have any reports on current events? Any current events? Anybody? Seeing none, move on. My page ends. So adjourn. It's on the back. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.